Hello, how are you, Abby? Okay, mm, here you're doing fine. So the first live talk session that we're doing. So yeah, very good afternoon. Now it's 12:01. To everyone here and also to my fellow co-speaker Abby. And by the way, my name is Vincent. If you didn't know. So yeah, and as you may have already know, today we're going to talk about which things that we hear a lot these days. And so I'm wondering, like, since this is also like something quite big for us, Abby, how are you feeling right now? Do you feel, any stress or any anxiousness or any anxiety that's going on right now?
Actually, I thought I would be anxious, but I've been doing it. I'm feeling sitting here. I don't feel as
Okay, wait. I think the audio is like breaking a little bit. Not sure if it's like that for anyone else. But yeah, are you able?
sorry.
Wait, is my audio clear right now?
Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah, cause your audio just now also seemed to be breaking a little bit just now. So what I'm hearing is also that before that you feel quite anxious, but like right now you don't feel as much as anxious like it used to be for you.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay, that's interesting to know. Okay. So anyway, like we talked about that just now, like how stress and anxiety are some of the very common word we hear these days when talking about mental health concerns. So, these words are getting like used more and more frequently, perhaps due to the prevalence of people finding themselves resonating or relating with these words of feelings. And it may seem like such prevalence means that the society is gradually filled with more and more people with mental health concerns. But actually, on the other hand, positive indications and also attention about mental health as well. Of course, even it is normal for people to go through challenging life moments, and the most important thing is how we are able to um, be aware of what we can do to move forward despite having the challenges. And like most people would describe themselves as being stressed or anxious, especially due to the heavy workload that people are getting nowadays. Like how our society is so fast paced, and like most of the working environments are working in a speed that's like very quick as well, and very very stressful as well. But of course, like what we understand that is that sometimes stress and anxiety could not um did not happen because of that reason alone. So I'm wondering, like, Eddie, do you have any ideas on, like, why are more and more people describing themselves as being stressed and anxious these days?
I think apart from the reason that now on heavy workloads and being in a very fast environment, I think a lot could be to people experiencing uncertainty towards the future. So, like for example, whether they will be able to defer their work on time, being work to once school, whether on future or would eventually
Mm. Okay, okay. So what I heard is that, sometimes there could be uncertainty towards like what happened in the future as well. But maybe just now, like the audio is like breaking a little bit. I'm not sure like what happened, but some part of like your sharing, I couldn't really like listen to them. Like maybe the owners can tell us like if the audio is like doing fine, or if there's like some issue with that. But yeah, coming back to that, since we talk about like uncertainty towards the future, and it's common for a lot of people as well because sometimes we might have that kind of like need for control or the need to understand about like what's going on so that we can feel that we have more power to influence the kind of thing that we're having right in front of us. So the uncertainty of that could sometimes result in us not knowing where to go about it, and that's when the stress and the anxiety could possibly came up as well. And also very a common confusion these days is that a lot of people find it hard to differentiate between like stress and anxiety, both probably because they give rise to similar symptoms and also the similar sensations. So it might also happen regularly that people might misunderstand their feelings of stress as anxiety or their anxiety as stress, like in the reverse. And knowing that, it also tells us the importance of understanding more about stress and anxiety, so a clearer picture of what we're experiencing. And then from there, we could know how we can move forward with this understanding about ourselves. So basically for today's session, we're going to focus on the three main discussions of first one, the similarities and differences between stress and anxiety. Second being the effects of stress and anxiety. And also last but not least, the tips to cope with stress and anxiety. And with that, we would also like to invite everyone to openly share your opinions and understanding of the discussions that we're going to have. And if there's any questions, please do not hesitate to type it out in the comment section below as well. We'll try our best to attend to your queries. Yeah, so I'll pass on to Abby for now.
Okay, just before, is my voice still breaking now?
Little bit,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
You can
so
you can test like a few more times, like do the like test mic test 1 2 3 kind of thing, maybe.
right.
Yeah, I think it's close is actually better. So
See that my audio is actually breaking.
fine, I guess.
So we're still practice, but if you let me know. Okay, so like how I differences between stress and no, the brief definition. Stress worry caused by a difficult situation. So more of the natural human response prompt us to challenges in life. Okay, we want to do something both positive and this is where difference between eustress in. So eustress is actually a positive form of stress that can motivate us to goals, improve our performance, improve our new job going first day. On the other hand, stress is a negative form of stress that most people associate feeling stressed out. So distress makes people feel overwhelmed, experience physical and psychological symptoms like headache, tension, inattentiveness. Examples of distress could include like losing a job or a loved one. Moving on to anxiety. Anxiety is more of an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worry, physical change, increased blood pressure. So everyone has feelings of at some point in their life. For example, it's about in your home or like career. But anxiety is considered more of like a future oriented and long to a way. So after thinking about the definition, actually still have in my mind that they can be very similar. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think they can be very similar as well, especially, like sometimes how they feel kind of like the same. Like there's like the feeling of like, rapid heartbeat, like, more rapid heartbeat than usual. And also, um, yeah, basically the symptoms could feel like almost the same, I would say. But I think the main way that I would differentiate them is, like what you said just now about like, some form of stress, they are actually considered like the pleasant kind of stress, like the so-called eustress, because like sometimes we might, feel that kind of like eustress in the face of something that's like coming up, and we are actually, somewhat feeling excited underlying the kind of like feeling of stress as well. But on the other hand, like sometimes you also feel anxious about things, and it could feel more unpleasant, I would say, in one way or another. And also, it causes us to feel very unease. It causes us to feel that, things are uncertain, and, we struggle to really manage ourselves in those situations. Yeah, that's the main way that I would, basically differentiate between them. Like, maybe for some form of stress, it feels, some form of it can feel like pleasant, more pleasant to us. But, for the other forms, for anxiousness or like anxiety, it could feel like, just really unpleasant, I would say. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, definitely right. You also touched on the differences now. So right now, kind of do a recap and also maybe talk a bit more on what are similarities. Both stress and anxiety, they both trigger the responses. So stress, pressure, and being overwhelmed. Similarly, anxiety can lead to worry, fear, dread, nervous. So stress has so many the physical symptoms, with them pick up in the now on how they manifest in similar symptoms. So these symptoms could include like tense muscles, rapid heartbeat, low breathing, headache. But both stress and anxiety can also impact concentrations. It could be concentrating, racing thoughts, or like a sense of mental restlessness. So they could really activate the body to fight or preparing our body to deal with potential dangers. In addition, similar coping mechanisms could be used to manage it, which the tips on how to deal with stress and anxiety will be further discussed later in the session. And also just now, Vincent did talk about, how one is a bit more unpleasant. Yeah, that is actually very, very true, because a lot of the times we may be experiencing like both anxiety and stress at the same time, with anxiety being a bit more overwhelming. So right now, we'll just talk a bit more on what are some of the differences that we see from these two. So stress is usually more external. Force yourself to feel stress through negative self-talk, a pessimistic attitude, or perfectionism is usually triggered by something external. So too many responsibilities takes could actually trigger a stress response. Anxiety, on the other hand, is more internal. It's how you react to these stresses. So, for instance, if you remove these stresses, you feel overwhelmed. You want to be anxiety instead. But with anxiety, you may feel a general sense of apprehension, dread, worry, even when there's nothing coming up that you to. So anxiety is actually like excessive reaction to like a given situation, and is relatively more persistent. So certain situations are stressful and would be for anyone. such as dealing with the arrangements of a death of your loved one, and anxiety is more of an outside reaction. If the worry you feel in a given situation is unusual, excessive, or goes well beyond the reactions of other people, even in the absence of a stressor, it's more likely that this is anxiety rather than stress. And like after talking about this, if anyone is interested, you can actually still do a screening test, which is called the Depression, Anxiety and Stress Scale, like DAS-21. It's a screening test that actually measure like your emotional states over the past week. So when I say that it measure your emotional states over the past week, so just be mindful that this is not a test to actually indicate whether you have depression or anxiety disorder or not, but it just tells you like how's your level of depression, anxiety, or stress during this period of time. So I'm wondering, Vincent, like now that I have talked about the similarities and differences, is there anything that you would like to add on?
I guess not. For me, it feels that, it's comprehensive to understand about the similarities and difference as well. Of course, like, I think something for us to emphasize is that sometimes it is not necessarily that we are feeling like one at a time. So it can also be that, stress and anxiety happen both at the same time as well. And, sometimes we, would feel that kind of like feelings of like experiencing mixed feelings because, we indeed like, are experiencing different kind of feelings at the same time as well. And it's hard to say that we are just experiencing merely one, but, just that maybe somehow along the line, one feeling could be like more obvious than the other one and can like have more impact than the other one as well. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's, how we are able to really see into ourselves and really, try to understand about ourselves and know how to move on from there. Yeah, that's what I would like to add on as well. Yeah. Do you have anything else to add on?
Actually, no from my end, but maybe I will just do a quick recap. Like what we mentioned just now, the similarities is more on like, they manifest in like similar symptoms, and also they all trigger emotional responses where it also like we can actually use similar coping mechanism to deal with stress and anxiety, but on the other hand, they are actually different, mainly on the side where stress is mostly triggered by external factors, but anxiety is more internal, is more of our response to these stressors. So with that being said, I think you can take over and talk about the effects of stress and anxiety.
Yeah, sure. I'll be glad to. Yeah, so now we're going to talk about like more on the effects of stress and anxiety because I suppose that it is also important for us to know what kind of effects it could lead to us so that, in the next time that we are experiencing some of these effects or some of these symptoms, we know that, what kind of feelings we are possibly undergoing, and then from there we can know like, what are the possible ways of like managing them. So especially in the early parts, like although stress and anxiety are of two different kind of emotional responses in the face of stressors or so-called triggering factors, their effects can be very similar and identical as well, which is also why a lot of people sometimes find the ideas for the two different words overlapping with one another. So both stress and anxiety can impact our health and well-being from our mental, our physical, emotional, and also our social aspects. And it is also crucial that we know what kind of the effects they can bring to us so that we can, like we said, we can identify what kind of emotions we are undergoing, and from there, with a better understanding, it would also be easier for us to navigate through the circumstances that we are in. Because imagine that, if we are not even clear of how we are feeling, it would definitely be harder for us to see and know what are the things we can focus on tackling in order to better our current situation. So yeah, one of the effects that stress and anxiety could cause is mental strain. And it's basically a form of cognitive tension that is caused by ruminating or so-called overthinking about our situation. Because sometimes we persistently try to analyze and rationalize through the kind of problems that we are stuck into. And if the rationalization part went overboard without our recognition and also without any effective coping that we use to regulate ourselves, it is easy for us to result in the state where we feel helpless, fatigued, and even sometimes, possibly lonely as well if there are no support systems that we can identify from our surroundings. And mental strain can feel like a state where our thoughts are, racing consistently, like, what Abby said just now, having racing thoughts. And it can feel as though our minds are like running and calculating information in an unstoppable manner. And that's why it can easily result in us feeling extremely tired, for us to overthink about the situation. And a lot of people might find this symptom relatable because it is also common for us to have a need to understand the situations that we are in. And it is so that we can feel that we are in control once we are able to rationalize our way out of the situations. But of course, like sometimes our ideals do not necessarily turn out the way that we wanted, which is also why when we are unable to figure it out, we keep on thinking about it until at the end of the day, we feel frustrated or angry to the fact that we couldn't figure the situations out right away. Yeah. So yeah. And another form of tension that it could cause onto us is in terms of our physical tension. So, stress and anxiety could also cause physical tension to us. And most commonly, what will happen to people after having a prolonged experience of stress and anxiety is that parts of their body will feel like it's aching, like in pain, and or like, it is like feeling like kind of like tense or very stiff or stuff like that. And, they might feel like their neck part aching, they might feel certain headaches, or they might feel like, there are any muscle aches in general as well. And this is because when we are feeling stressed or anxious, our fight or flight response, as like everybody up just now, in our innate body system, they will get activated. And our brain and body will basically prepare ourselves emotionally and also physically and also, cognitively to react to the perceived threats or challenges. So maybe in the next time when, you are under pressure, you can pay attention to what happened to your body. Like, for example, when you're chasing a deadline. So what you might notice is that, your body might actually feel stiffer in general, and your breathing as well as your heartbeat might go way faster than usual as well. And all of these are of our body natural responses to prepare us to face potential threats or challenges, as our blood vessels, they are enlarged to allow for more blood flow and also energy for us to fight. And fight is literally, to face with the stresses or the triggers, or, on the other hand, you also have flight, which is running away from the stresses or the triggers. And without them, it will definitely be harder for us to react or respond to the stresses or anything that is causing our anxiety as well. However, if we are to be exposed to long-term kind of stress or anxiety, it might also result in serious physical symptoms. Because imagine like what would happen to our blood vessel, to our heart, and to our muscles if they are overworked. It is going to be straining for them as well. And that's why like a lot of body symptoms would also likely happen if we are having like long duration of, stressful and also anxious experiences. Yeah.
Actually, what before you continue, when you say that like our fight or flight response would be activated, right? Do you mean that like those symptoms or responses would stay there for a very long period of time, or how does that go?
Not necessarily, because it depends on case by case and depends on like different kind of like situations. Sometimes if somehow we are more able to expect like there's an end to the stressor or a certain significant event, maybe like it's easier for us to get out of that fight or flight response as well. But in times if like the stressors or like the triggering factors, they stay with us longer and there's like less control over us onto them, maybe the so-called like fight or flight response would like stay longer with us as well, because our body has to prepare ourselves to face the threats at anytime there's like coming near to us as well. So maybe it depends more on like situation by situation, I would say.
Mm, I see. Okay. That gives me a better like understanding.
Yeah. And I guess it's also important for us to know that, this so-called fight or flight response is not something that we can control, like when it will come out or when it will disappear, but more to like, we have the ability to regulate it. So sometimes there are so-called like the deep breathing technique or so-called the muscle relaxation technique that could help for us to regulate ourselves down as well, because not necessarily every time when the fight or flight response activate, it really means that, there is real threats or like real challenge that we are to face. And sometimes it is just like a sort of like habituation of our body to the kind of like significant events that we are going to have. But of course, like that's on the other topic. Yeah, and of course, like we are going to talk about that more during the later part when we are talking about the tips to cope with stress and anxiety. Yeah. So yeah, and next up, going to the third point of the possible effect of stress and anxiety. And yeah, for this particular point, although it might not be that noticeable, but actually stress and anxiety can also have effects on our relationship with other people as well. Because when we are under stress or anxiety, we might consciously or unconsciously want to reserve more energy and time for ourselves to attempt to resolve our problems or difficulties. And this can happen because for people who are undergoing significant stress or anxiety, they might prioritize their own coping mechanisms, and during the process, they might unintentionally neglect others' relationship needs. And at a higher level of stress and anxiety, people might be more irritable, defensive, or withdrawn to communicate with other people, which might cause trouble for others to provide them with the support they need as well. As a result, they might be emotionally distant from others, or there could be more chances of them having conflicts with other people, which in general would impact their relationship if they do not pay enough awareness to preventing their stress and anxiety to negatively affect the way they relate with other people. And as we talk about how we might want to reserve more time and energy for ourselves, a further effect of this is that there might also be less quality time that we spend with our loved one as well, which might affect quality of the kind of like important relationships that we are having. Yeah. So yeah, I'll pass it to Abby to further continue with the other effects of stress and anxiety.
Alright. So talking about other effects of stress and anxiety, it can also include like having a reduced focus and productivity. So when under stress and anxiety, you may find it very challenging to prioritize like, your tasks effectively. So for instance, imagine you have a tight deadline at work, a family event to attend, and house chores to complete. So they might leave you feeling very overwhelmed, making it difficult to decide which tasks should be dealt with first. So in addition, the stress and anxiety can also cause your mind to wander, making it harder to stay focused on the task at hand. So one example could be like during an important meeting, your mind might drift to personal worries, impacting your ability to actively participate and contribute. So I'm wondering, Vincent, like have you ever find yourself having like, reduced focus and productivity when you're under stress and anxiety?
I think I have that a lot actually. Like, for example, when I'm doing my work or when I'm doing my studies, there are a lot of times that why are you laughing at me? I thought this is like common for a lot of people.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, but like, this is an honest reflection that, this happened a lot of times before when I experienced the reduced focus and also reduced efficiency in my work because of, I'm feeling overly stressed or feeling overly anxious about the task that I'm working on, because then I would focus more on, whether I would be able to get the job done rather than actually focus on the task on hand, which I have to done in order to make sure that the task can get done in a way that's like effective. Yeah.
Mm.
So I think it happened a lot of time before, and I guess like the most important thing is also to understand that what I'm feeling, and also from there, if I understand about it, then what are the possible ways that I could do with that. Yeah, which I will talk about in the later part as well. So yeah, thank you for asking that. I really needed someone to ask me that so that I can express my unpleasant feeling. Yeah.
And also,
Mm.
just now you mentioned when we are more aware of this, like stress and anxiety that you're feeling, we can learn how to deal with it, right? But maybe for some people that they don't realize it at the very beginning, they don't catch these symptoms at first,
Mm.
it's also very likely that it will escalate into like another effect of stress and anxiety, which is emotional roller coaster, such as like mood swings, irritability, and heightened emotional reactions. So they can actually cause like unpredictable shifts in your mood. So for example, one moment you may feel fine and optimistic about the day, but a stressful event like a challenging conversation with a colleague can suddenly lead to feelings of frustration or sadness. So stress and anxiety can actually make you feel more irritable and easily triggered by even minor annoyance. So for instance, if you are stressed about a pending deadline, even a small distraction or someone interrupting you might provoke a stronger reaction than usual. So maybe your colleague or like your friend is just checking up on you how are you doing? Do you need any help with anything? And you may actually find this being a personal attack or like a criticism, like you will feel as though people are questioning you, that you're not doing enough. Like, why are you still talking to me as you know that I'm very busy? Which usually you don't react this way. It's only when you're under overwhelming stress and anxiety you start reacting this way. And it may even play into like, being angry and start arguing with the friend or colleague, which then links back to the point that Vincent talked about just now, like relationship shaping, because it affects how we actually interact and also build relationship with the people around us. And just to summarize, knowing these effects that like all these effects of stress and anxiety could actually take a toll on us from like, physical, emotional, and behavioral aspects. But now that we know about effects, we can actually learn how to cope with them like more effectively. So Vincent, would you like to share with the audience on some of the tips?
Yeah, of course, I'm happy to share about the tips to cope with stress and anxiety. So, yeah, let's get into it. And yeah, about the first tip that we're going to give, and I suppose that a lot of people might have heard about this from other people a lot, especially during the time when, we express our stress or anxiousness to other people, we tend to hear other people say one very common thing, which is getting regular physical activity. And sometimes this idea might not click that well with some people, because I think a very common problem to that is that sometimes we do not exactly understand how physical exercise can help us to deal with our stressful or anxious feelings. And actually, from a scientific perspective, doing an appropriate amount of exercise can help to release more so-called endorphins to our brain. And it is basically a kind of brain chemicals that serve to lift our mood up, that can help to alleviate the stressful or anxious feelings as our body gradually put ourselves back to the state where we feel calmer. And not only that, but physical exercise can also help giving a sense of achievement once we are able to do that. And, it can actually also serve as an outlet for us to release our pent up energy as well. So for example, some people might do certain activity that requires more energy and requires more physical effort, like, doing boxing, or, they run, but like running super quickly. But of course, like, not necessarily you have to do the activities that require your maximum effort into it. And sometimes it depends on what is considered like suitable for you as well. Even like sometimes like moderate level exercise, or like mini exercise could also be helpful as well, as long as you are able to feel that somehow there's like a release of emotions, and also, somehow like along the way of doing that, the endorphins start to kick in, and, you somehow can feel like calmer with that. Yeah. And yeah, for the feelings of being stressed, particularly, doing exercise can also help to alleviate that as well, because it helps to reduce the amount of cortisol in our body, which is the stress hormones in our body. And ultimately, we may achieve a calmer mind once we engage in doing physical activities. And, when you do exercise like frequently and so regularly, it can also, ensure ourselves to have more likelihood of being able to regulate our emotions in a healthy manner as well. So that's point number one. And number two is about keeping a sense of humor. So remember how we talked about endorphins just now, which is like, the kind of brain chemicals that help alleviating our stressful and anxious feelings. So keeping a sense of humor can actually help to achieve that as well, because laughter is able to trigger the release of endorphins. And apart from that, the sense of humor can also help us to reframe and rethink our current difficulties from other perspectives, which can allow us to view our situations in a way that's more lighthearted. Of course, providing that we are not denying our unpleasant emotions. And the use of humor is mainly about shifting our perspectives in the way we look at our difficulties. And sometimes along the way, it may also help us to unexpectedly find the solutions to our problems as well. Yeah, so that's for point number two, keeping a sense of humor. So try to, find more jokes that you can, keep in stock. So, the next time when you feel like you are feeling stressed or anxious, maybe you can, take some time to look at your own jokes, and sometimes it also helps to look at your own jokes and then laugh about it as well. Yeah, so practice that, because I practice that normally also.
I just
So,
like a little point. Like even if you
uh,
stuff like a bit difficult to go and find jokes and whatnot, you can also get this source of like jokes from your friends. I often
yeah.
thought, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure that, who you heard that from, but, I'm guessing that the friend must be a very funny and interesting person. Yeah, so,
All right.
yeah. Yeah, so I'll continue further with the third tip to cope with stress and anxiety. So the third one is learning to say no to additional responsibilities when you are too busy, or, you are too stressed. Sometimes our stressful or anxious feelings get perpetuated or maintained as there are additional responsibilities being added onto us continuously. And situations like this can happen because sometimes it is difficult for us to maintain a proper boundary with other people and allow ourselves to have more time and space to recover our energy, so that we can move forward. And that's why it is also crucial that we can learn to say no to additional responsibilities when we know that we are already in a great difficulty to manage our tasks on hand, when we know that we are already feeling overly stressed or anxious to deal with our responsibilities on hand. It can also prevent us from being, overwhelmed with commitments, because sometimes we may feel overburdened if we are having too much of responsibilities, because sometimes we struggle with like meeting other people's expectations, which give rise to, further stress or anxiety as well. And for a lot of people, saying no can be difficult because we might think that it is rude or selfish to do so, but actually learning to maintain good boundaries with others and learning to appropriately caring for our own well-being are also very essential in managing ourselves as well. And saying no doesn't necessarily mean that it is rude, but rather it is more about like communicating with other people that although you feel like wanting to help, however, with your current situation that's already difficult enough, you just cannot afford to offer effective help to them. Also, maybe we can perhaps try to remind ourselves that if we are already unable to ensure that we are in a suitable state of helping others, how can we make sure that, the help that we are delivering can be effective enough to assist other people? In that case, not only that we might feel even worse because we are unable to deliver effective work, but also we might feel further stressed or anxious because of the less time and energy we are left to attend to our other matters. So it is a tactful as well as important skill for us to say no in times when we need to. Yeah, so I'll pass to Abby to talk about the remaining tips to cope with stress and anxiety.
All right. So dealing with some of the ways to deal with stress and anxiety, it can actually include like staying connected with people who keep us calm, make us happy, provide emotional support, and help us with the things. So during tragedy, having friends, family members, or loved ones who provide emotional support became very important. So for instance, we are going with someone who listens without judgment, offers a shoulder to lean on, and actually make us to cope with the situation. Moreover, being connected with people who are willing to lend a helping hand can be a great relief, so especially during the stressful or overwhelming periods. So, for example, if you have tasks or like work or personal commitments, having someone who offers to help with house chores or can definitely lighten like your load and reduce stress. And at the end of the day, we as human beings are social creatures, and nurturing social relationships is for our well-being. And engaging in positive social reduce like overwhelmed feelings and boost overall happiness, contributing to better stress and anxiety management. So for me personally, I like to so even they don't offer me like advice or guidance, I think that could be better after that. So how about you, Winston?
What about me? Of course, I like to talk with friends whenever I'm feeling like, distressed so that, I can get some, um, get some sense of like being connected with other people so that I don't feel like, I'm the only one who is like going through this. And, even with friends, just, sometimes being there, sitting and listening is actually pretty helpful already as well because I know that there are people who care about me essentially. So, I'm not the only one who's like going through my challenges and, so that I don't feel that lonely as well. So yeah, I practice that. I would say
Mm.
like a lot as well. Yeah. Uh,
And actually, apart from seeking emotional support from others, another option that we can also consider to seek professional help, which is talking to a therapist. Because while talking to your loved ones can be helpful, but sometimes it's unfair to like treat your loved ones like your personal therapist. Like doing this can sometimes turn the relationship between you and your loved ones to a one-sided, especially unlike talking to a loved one. Talking to a therapist provides you, a space to explore your feelings, thoughts, coping strategies. And this, you identify the root cause of your stress and anxiety and facilitate recovery with the healthier way to manage them. And in individual therapy, yeah, you get to focus on yourself.
yeah. And like, seeking professional help or like, seeing individual therapy is actually helpful in a way that we get to focus more on our thought and emotion processes so that, we can have like more time and space for ourselves to really know what is happening within us and then really like try to identify or discover the possible ways of like managing ourselves in a way that's like more effective. But like, maybe talking to friends or like talking with our loved ones can sometimes not be that efficient in terms of like our own self discovery is because there's like limited chances of doing so because like, when we are talking with friends, it's not just like a one side kind of like interaction, but it's more like, it's like both sides happening going on. Sometimes people might chip in their opinions onto the conversation as well. And that's when, we find ourselves like having limited opportunity to really look deep into ourselves. So yeah, at the end of the day, like both sides of it can result in, positive effects onto us, but, maybe like seeking professional help, it also gives us a place where we can seek for professional guidance on how to move forward, and also because it is like professional help, so there's like professional boundary with other people as well. And if there's like professional boundary, there are like certain limitations that we can know, so that we do not like further how to say, like go beyond the thing that we would normally do, like you get what I mean, actually. Yeah. So like if there's like professional boundary, there's like certain limitations onto like the time that, or the thing that you can actually do as well, to really, it basically gives you a sense that you are under certain positive pressure to find out the possible ways to deal with the situation, essentially. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I've been struggling to find out that word, but luckily I found it out at the end of the day. Yeah, so you can continue.
Yeah, actually, when you talk about having the social support, but also wanting to talk to, actually we have both at the same time, which is another alternative would be joining group counseling to deal with like stress and anxiety, because like group counseling actually involves like rough treatments, and we'll have one or more therapists facilitating this group. And usually, many groups are designed to tackle specific problems such as like depression, obesity, eating disorders, social anxiety. Some other groups may focus more generally on improving social skills, helping people to deal with a range of issues such as like anger, loneliness, and low self-esteem. During that time, group members discuss the issues and offer each other support and feedback. The interpersonal interaction is highly valued and encouraged in group counseling. Some people consider like more group of strangers may sound intimidating at first, but group therapy actually provide benefits that individuals may not. A lot of the time, group members are almost always surprised by how rewarding the group experience can be. So group therapy allows people to receive the support and encouragement from one another. People in the group can see that others are going through the same thing, which can make them feel less lonely or less alone. And this setting that allows people to practice behaviors within the safety and security of the group. Besides, group members can also serve as like role models and support figures for one another, because by observing someone that has successfully coped with their problems, other members see that there's hope for recovery. If the progresses taken, can serve as role model or figure for others. This can actually help us like foster feelings of success and accomplishment. Last but not least, group therapy is often very affordable. So instead of focusing on just one client, the therapist can work into a much larger group of people, which reduces the cost for participants. So joining group counseling can be an enriching experience for individuals seeking support, personal growth, and belonging. And actually, our center also offers group counseling services. So Vincent, would you like to let our audience know a bit more on the details?
Yeah, of course, I'd like to. Yeah, so to our fellow audience right here, in case you are not aware or if you have missed out our previous Instagram post, we are actually pleased to introduce you of our group counseling services once again. And just like the topic that we are speaking of right now, we do also provide a group counseling that focuses on stress and anxiety management. Yeah, thank you, Abby, for showing the hard copy of the poster. Yeah. So, and as this title suggests, for this topic, the main focus is to facilitate the discoveries of how the stresses and triggers of our stress and anxiety are risen and how they are being maintained. And then we'll also focus on identifying the possible ways to manage them as well after, we learn about the different factors contributing to them. So there will be a total of 8 sessions for the group counseling with with each of the session having different kind of like objective. For example, for the early parts of the group session, we'll stick more to discovering the factors contributing to our stress and anxiety, like we talked about right just now. And for the later parts, we'll talk more about how to cope with our stress and anxiety. Yeah. And of course, if stress and anxiety aren't the topic that you feel like you would like to further discover about, we do also have other topics, precisely 2 other topics that are available, with one being called Discovering Meaning of Life. Yeah, so yeah, thank you, Eddie, once again for the poster, Discovering Meaning of Life. So this is the second topic that is available. And the other one being, you may have to like switch to another paper already, and the other one being Managing Thoughts from an Islamic Perspective, in which this one, it will be facilitated by our Muslim practitioners at here. Yeah. And so basically each of these topics has their own unique outline, as each one of them will target on different aims and purposes. So in terms of the price and all, we are happy to announce that there will be an early bird prize given for the ones who register earlier. And the early bird price will be 40 ringgit for each session, as opposed to the normal price of 50 ringgit for each session. So if you're interested in joining for all the 8 sessions, which is highly encouraged, the early bird price will be 320 ringgit, while for the normal total price, it will be 400 ringgit. And once you get to register yourself during the early bird and get to obtain more information from the session. So basically, if in the middle for any events that have resulted in your absence, that's when the normal price will apply again for the subsequent sessions. Yeah. So for the registration, you may refer to the relevant Instagram post, and the post will look like the ones that Abby showed on the papers just now. And you can then scan the QR code for the topic that you're interested in, and then fill up your relevant details. And yeah, so the exact dates are still to be confirmed yet, but as of this moment, it has been discussed that for stress and anxiety management topic, the group sessions will fall on Saturdays, but which Saturday, it is still to be confirmed yet, basically. So yeah, once again, like Abby mentioned just now, actually group counseling services will have many benefits for us as well, and because it is basically a form of psychotherapy, though it is like different from the typical one-on-one session. But for group counseling, it is beneficial for our clients to not only receive support from the therapists alone or like from the facilitators alone, but they could also get the support from the other participants, which help because we will be able to see that there are actually more and more people who are with us, who are there to sit with us and then process the things with us. Yeah. And like Eddie talked about it just now, along the way of listening to others who might share similar experiences to us, sometimes it can inspire us in a way that we learn from others regarding the way they deal with the similar issues as well. So yeah, it is encouraged to also consider about joining group session as an alternative to having psychotherapy, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, if anyone has any questions, whether it's regarding the group counseling or like regarding our topic today on stress and anxiety, like feel free to ask us. And while maybe some people may need time to type and whatnot, I will just do a quick wrap up of the session while we wait. So from the session today, one thing that I want to wrap up is that, while stress and anxiety is actually expected and shouldn't be a cause of concern in your life, because we do experience stress and anxiety. Like it, a lot of the times it depends on how much of it that you are feeling and how long you're experiencing it. But it's normal for us to actually feel stressful and anxious. One important thing is that we actually recognize when these feelings are arising, and it may be a concern when it starts causing like negative consequences or effects on our body, our health, from like a physical point of view or mental point of view. And this is the time where you may need to start, like think about what are some of the ways that I can do to deal with them. And yeah, eventually just after dealing with them, it usually can reduce or like return to a normal state. Vincent, have anything to add on?
Yeah, I guess like when we talk about like stress and anxiety, one thing that's like most prominent to me, or like something that be something for me to emphasize more, is that sometimes it's important that we recognize that stress and anxiety, they can be quite interrelated to one another, and not necessarily they stand on their own. So yeah, if you're struggling to really identify what kind of feelings that you're going on, sometimes there is a possibility of experiencing like mixed kind of like feelings as well. Of course, like at the end of the day, what matters is also about like how we're going to manage that. So yeah, it's important to also try to seek out some possible ways to really manage our stressful feelings and also our anxious feelings. And not only you can refer to the kind of tips that we talk about today, but it can also be very helpful if you have some way that you've been practicing for a long time on your own and you find that to be effective. And it can also be helpful that you try to ask people around on what they try to do when they're feeling stressed or feeling anxious. Of course, like providing like the kind of like coping is not something that you help yourself or things like that. But yeah, the main thing here is to really find out the ways that we can effectively use to really deal with our unpleasant emotions, basically. Yeah, that's something that I would like to add on.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's more of finding a way that actually works well for us, especially in the long run. And maybe your
That
way, and yeah, it may not be the same as how some other people do, but that's okay as long as like it can help you in the long run. That and you feel comfortable with using this method of yours.
that is correct, because like like one of the tips that we talk about is about like keeping a sense of humor. So for some people, they might not find that helpful, but for some, they might find it helpful. And at the end of the day, it's not about like us using the exact same way as other people to try to manage our stress or anxiety, but it's about us finding what feels right for us or what feels comfortable for us to do so, as long as at the end of the day we didn't like harm ourselves or harm other people. And it can be helpful already if you are able to identify the ways that you can possibly use, basically. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's all for our session. I don't see any questions regarding this. But still, like, thank you everyone for joining us today on gaining some new perspective on. So next Wednesday we will take on another. So just stay tuned on our.
Yeah. Stay tuned and bye bye.
All right, thank you everyone. Bye bye.